On today's episode of the SBS podcast, we are starting things off, of course, by talking this Dodgers World Series run. Although since recording this, they have, of course, won the World Series. So congrats to UCLA great Dave Roberts and his team. We switched over to which UCLA basketball players from the 2010s that we dearly miss. We, of course, talk football and this Nebraska road game coming up this Saturday at 12:30 p.m. And then last but not least, we are talking more basketball as UCLA hoop season is just days away. So all of that and more coming up next on the SBS podcast. Are we recording now?
We're recording.
Well, no reason to change topics. It is Tuesday, and the Dodgers are looking to sweep tonight. By the time this airs, the Dodgers are either going to be World Series champs, going 4-0 against the Yanks, or is there a game tomorrow night if they don't pull it off?
Yeah, so they might win, 4-1, potentially. I don't know.
A lot of people want a Game 6 because, A, it'd be in L.A., and B, it'd be a Friday night. That'd be pretty cool. Is this Halloween weekend, or was last weekend Halloween weekend?
I think last weekend was.
I'm seeing the opposite.
Oh, yeah?
It's Thursday night. Can you celebrate Halloween in November?
I don't think so. But Thursday night you can go out.
But then it's a hard stop there?
I think so. I don't know. I might be in the minority.
No, I mean, I feel like you could do both. I mean, it's close enough to the weekend on Thursday where you could, do this weekend. And last weekend I saw plenty of Instagram stories, so.
Okay. Well, then I won't say. Okay, maybe I will say Friday night World Series championship victory, 4th win on Halloween weekend would be pretty epic. I can go as Freddie Freeman for Halloween.
There you go. Just a champ.
I was wearing the Freddie Freeman jersey on the night of the Grand Slam.
Oh my God.
Jameson's. That was probably the most rowdy sports environment I've ever been in outside of a stadium in my life. It was incredible.
You were at JMO's for the walk-off?
Dude, I was at JMO's for the walk-off, and they I didn't mean to do this because I just look like such an attention whore, but I was standing on top of a stool, as were a few other people. And then when the Grand Slam happened, my buddy Troy, I went to go hug him, and he was like kind of like head at like my stomach level because he was just standing on the ground, and he like kind of like hugged me and picked me up in a way. And then another guy grabbed my leg, and then the next thing I know, they're doing like when you throw a guy in the air,
Yeah.
like hip
Like
hip
a
hip,
hip
hip
hooray.
hooray. Yeah, I was the hip hip hooray victim, but it was pretty sweet.
Freddie Freeman at JMO's.
I didn't know that was it Giancarlo Stanton that was
Yeah.
running.
I was about to ask
Notre
about
Dame.
that.
He must have like broken knees.
I
want to
know how a guy that looks that athletic,
Runs like-
the guy's not fat. He's in great shape. Yeah. Why is he running so slow, Kyle? I don't know. Can you give any insight there?
I think he's just stiff, man. Like, you're that big. You're just stiff in nature.
Who wins in
Say it again?
Who wins in a foot race? Giancarlo Stanton or
Mick Cronin.
Ethan Garbers? Garbers or
Garbers had a nice 48-yard.
I think it's Garbers.
Yeah.
That's probably not fair to Garbers.
No.
How about
Yeah.
Giancarlo Stanton versus Maliki Mataveo? That's probably close, right?
I'd still say Mataveo.
Mataveo's more athletic.
Yeah. Say Mataveo.
Fine.
Yeah.
Should we dip into the Alani
Jay Toya.
Jay Toya.
Yeah.
Jay Toya's kind of quick too. Who's the giant? Right? Who is the lead block? 6 lines. Alani Makahili.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're talking. Let's get that live streamed
That's
on the
more
SBS pod.
competitive,
Yeah. Okay. On a more, let's talk college football a little bit. It was announced at Penn State. It's been announced for a while. Penn State versus Ohio State is going to be the big noon game. And did Fox kind of like screw themselves by naming their big show Big Noon? Because this is pretty crazy that this is the Big Ten game of the year. Mm-hmm. Or Oregon, Ohio State. Either way, it's one of the Big Ten games of the year. It's being played in the middle of the day, 9 a.m. Pacific time. Like, this is the time slot that we watched UCLA versus Rutgers.
Yep.
And we're watching Penn State, Ohio State in the whiteout game.
But I've heard the whiteout game is always a day game. That's not. That's not the case, right?
No, the Mo Bamba clip
That's a night game.
Always
Yeah, it's a night game.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think college game day and big noon kickoff will both be in attendance. So that's usually not typical.
Nobody wants to cover UCLA versus Nebraska.
I'll be
On the
covering
Big
it.
Ten Network.
I'll be watching it.
Yeah.
I'm kind of bummed that it's not a 9 a.m. I was really kind of jiving with the 9 a.m.s, but now I got to figure out a way to, I don't know.
Were you?
I was. I talked about that on previous episodes that I really, at least when it comes obviously to the road for away games, I like waking up and grabbing some donuts for my boys and drinking coffee, and it's the game ends and it's like
getting out of the way.
It's not even the PM yet. So
what if we had a 9 a.m. at the Rose Bowl?
Could you handle that for a one-off, like just for an experience? I'd fucking love it. Get up at like 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Cook some pancakes on the griddle or something at the tailgate.
Well, like 9 a.m. kickoff. That's a crazy hypothetical, but I love the noon kickoff. I don't love the noon kickoff. I like the tailgating aspect of the noon kickoffs. I love getting at the Rose Bowl at like 6 a.m. I remember the UCLA win over SC, the Jonathan Franklin game in the rain. That was either like a noon or a 2 p.m. kickoff. But back then, the gates opened 8 hours before kickoff and not 6. So we were there at like 6 a.m. And that was a blast. And getting there early and making breakfast out in the golf course is a great time. If we haven't had an opportunity to do that this year, I don't believe. Mm-hmm. But if there is a noon kickoff, maybe the Fresno State game or another one, or maybe even SC, highly recommend, if you're thinking about it, go out and tailgate and grow some balls and get out there early. It's actually really fun watching the sun come up and getting after it. Yeah. Anything else that you guys wanted to add to Penn State?
I wanted to say maybe the Big Ten game of the year is actually going to be Ohio State, Indiana, coming up in a few weeks.
Yeah.
That's going to be potentially for who makes it into the Big Ten championship game.
What happens if Indiana wins that game? What if they win the national championship? I'm kind of saying that to be funny, but like, I don't know.
I mean, they keep winning.
They keep winning.
I mean, we've seen crazier shit in college football.
Not that. I mean, no, that would be the crazy.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Indiana, what were they?
First year,
four win last year.
Yeah, 3 or 4.
First year head coach James Madison, hair transplant type situation, and they go and win the national championship. That would be crazier than App State beating Michigan. What would you say is the craziest thing to happen in college football ever? It can be an upset. It can be a national championship. It can be Manti Te'o's girlfriend.
That was pretty crazy. The Manti Te'o one is pretty crazy.
I think it'd be right there with Manti Te'o's girlfriend.
It would be up there.
Switching over to talking tweets. I'm only seeing one tweet on here, and that's probably because there's not a whole lot of content coming off the bye week, and I hate that there's only one tweet because it's a fucking USC tweet.
I think we got a second one in there, Ross.
I see. One. Oh, sorry. I'm on my notes. I'm not on the updated one. Someone start me off. What's the other tweet?
So, I don't know. I've just been seeing this trend going around on Twitter now that it's, college basketball season. My whole feed seems to be college basketball at the moment, but it's people be like, I miss him, in quotes, and it's just some college basketball player from the 2010s, and then people are posting a picture of a basketball player. So if you guys were, going about this, that I miss him, for me, it's going to be my freshman year. It's a pretty easy one for me, but Lonzo Ball, because, man, that year was freaking epic. 2016, 2017 season, TJ Leaf, Ike Anigbogu, Bryce Alford was absolutely sniping threes at the time. And honestly, probably one of my favorite memories as a student in Poly is going to be the UCLA-Oregon game with the Lonzo Ball step-back three.
Kyle, well, that's a very obvious answer and a right one. I don't know if you understood the assignment, because last time you told me about – no, I brought up the – is Fortnite overrated meme, and you told me you never heard of it. So I'm starting to question your your meme literacy, and I feel like that's kind of one of those prompts where it's like you got to pick someone that you miss, but it's like kind of not obvious.
Kyle picked the number 2 overall pick in the NBA.
Of course you missed the guy. If we're
gonna go maybe under the radar guy, I'll say T. Welsh.
I was gonna say that. Shout out T. Welsh. Ran into him in the bathrooms at Stagecoach.
I ran into him at Stagecoach too, and I was waiting in a pizza line that took 45 minutes. I was in a horrible mood. I'm like, nothing can pick up my mood right now, like other than Thomas Welsh randomly walking by, and Thomas Welsh randomly walked by, and I go, Welsh, and he looks. He's head and shoulders above everybody else, and I waved my hand. I go Bruins, and he gave me Go Bruins back.
He doesn't blend into a crowd.
No, he does not.
Jordan Adams could be another good pick.
Jordan Adams, he won the Pac-12 championship. He hit a game winner against Arizona in 2013. He was he's an underrated Bruin for sure. I think that's a great answer for that. If I had to pick one, I'm just going to prove a point here with such a deep cut. I'm going to go Lazarique Jones.
I'm gonna do a two-puller as well. I'm gonna say one from the mid-2000s. For me, Jordan Farmar, role player in those couple of those Final Four runs.
I think he's too mainstream.
Is Jordan Farmar too mainstream?
He's a legend. You got to go deeper than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Prince Ali. No.
I do not miss Prince Ali, dude.
I'm trying to think of some random one that you guys haven't mentioned yet. I mean, Lorenzo Mata's too mainstream.
Honestly, the Ike Onibogu one was a
great one.
Yeah.
He's underrated. He left obviously
That dude
way.
can dunk.
He left way too early. I don't know why he left, but that was kind of like I always felt like UCLA teams always kind of lacked like a giant physical, like massive guy under the rim, and he brought that. I mean that.
Jalen Hands. I like Jalen Hands.
Yeah,
Really?
I liked Jalen Hands too,
him.
but was he a bust?
Yes.
Yeah. He was so hyped out of high school, bro.
Yeah.
What about
Chris Wilkes?
Chris Wilkes. Oh, Chris Wilkes was sick. I remember.
I feel like him and Jalen Hands go hand in hand, where they're both
do.
like set the world on fire, 5 stars, and
LiAngelo Ball.
let me tell you about the LiAngelo Ball experiment in Westwood. No, those were all some good polls. If we're missing one, let us know in the comments. We've had, I think, 3 comments so far on Spotify over the last 8 weeks.
And one of them is, I think, your girlfriend.
And another one's Taylor, who's my buddy.
Okay, great. So if you don't know us, we'd love to hear from you in the comments.
So
second tweet on Talking Tweets, we've got USC. Oh, who's got the actual? Is this the actual tweet that I'm reading right here, Kyle?
yeah, just copy and paste.
From Ryan Cartg. USC is closing practice access to reporters for the rest of this season, a spokesperson said. Media will still have interviews after practice, but there will be no viewing periods. Obviously, this is about the USC football team. I feel like there's been a lot of, speculation that Lincoln Riley is incredibly soft when it comes to the media. People use words a lot less nice than soft. And I don't really pay enough attention to his. I mean, I love watching him lose, but like I don't really follow their day to day during the week. But this kind of confirms it. I mean, I've never really seen anything like that midseason say no, you can't watch practice anymore unless I don't know something's gone past me.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is just going to like, he doesn't want people seeing. He doesn't want the reporters seeing what's going on in practice, maybe some coaching philosophies, things like that. Like anything to take his job away that can be seen at practice potentially, right? He's on the hot seat, and I think he's feeling it. And this is, just like you said, Ross, this is an incredibly soft move. I know that him and players will still be available after practice, but to do this mid-season, right, when I think, obviously they just came off a win, but this just, adds fuel to the fire to the media to just come after him. So, I don't know.
Dude, I don't think I agree with everything you said, but him being on the hot seat. I don't think he's on the hot seat. Last time we talked. I think he should be. If I were a USC fan, I'd want him to be. But last time we talked about this, bro, I said that it was an $80 million buyout. Turns out it's 90.
Right.
I don't think he's going anywhere. I think they're gonna make.
He's going anywhere, but he's feeling the pressure. I mean, he's like,
Yeah.
It's there's just pressure. That's what I mean by that. I don't think he's going anywhere either.
Yeah.
But I mean, USC fans, they're not. No one's happy there, right? That's the sort of hot seat that I'm meaning.
Dude, if he turns out to actually be as lousy of a head coach, kind of like almost like their Chip Kelly, then that is a nightmare situation over there. If he continues to regress and lose 4, 5, 6 games a season, then like they're screwed. Like that's an ugly situation. It's beautiful from over here, but for them it sucks.
Yeah, and with a Heisman quarterback too, who he'd had multiple years with. It's not like this was just some new kid that he was developing. He developed him into a Heisman quarterback, a first overall NFL pick, and wasn't able to do jack.
Yeah.
But I wanted to bring up something from the last episode about USC, and we talked about that the Dodger game versus USC game attendance on that Friday. Did any of you guys catch the stands at the Coliseum?
Oh, yeah. Okay, here's my take on that. If so UCLA, we wear blue. The Rose Bowl seats, they're colored like a light salmon.
Yeah.
Which is closer to red than anything else. when they show, those notorious photos of the empty Rose Bowl like 5 minutes before kickoff or and it just looks horrible, admittedly so. USC plays in a stadium, they wear red, and the seats are red. So they don't get hammered enough on Twitter for just how bad it. If they had like light blue seats, or let's just call it white, that picture before the Rutgers game would look so bad. And they play on campus, and they're supposed to be a football program. They do not get dragged. I put up a post on the SBS Instagram like a year ago about this shit. All things considered, they are proportionately so much worse of from an attendance perspective of a football program or a fan base than we are. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I'm being a homer about that. We have to travel how many miles? 15?
A lot.
Let's call it 15.
17, I think, yeah.
To play in a pink stadium. And we get dragged. And we're a basketball school. And we've been terrible, like record lows in the last 10 years. And they are a football blue blood. And they play with seats that match their colors.
Yeah.
And it still looks horrible.
Yeah.
They don't get dragged enough.
No. But nobody was at that game.
Mic drop.
Do you guys want to know the attendance that's on ESPN?
Yeah.
It's going to be bullshit. It's going to say like 60K.
That's how much they sold.
What does it say?
Yeah. How bullshit is this? 63,000.
Yeah, that's no shot.
That
no
is
shot.
A complete shameless lie.
Yeah.
There's no way. It was probably like 35,000 people. That's okay. That's like when UCLA played Bowling Green. I was at this game. It was 108 degrees. And we were playing Bowling Green. I think it was the season. No, it was the
season opener. It was a home opener. The Coastal?
No, that was the year after. This was 2 seasons ago. It might have been.
It might have been the opener then. This was the HBCU season.
Who scheduled that?
South Alabama. Was it South Alabama?
We played South Alabama that year.
Okay. It was the HBCU.
That might have been last year. Hold on. Bear with me. 2022. UCLA football.
45-17.
Yeah, Kyle, isn't this your job?
I'm on it.
Okay, no, it was a season opener. Okay. Going back to the point.
Season opener.
If you guys go and look at photos, and I was there, go back and look at photos of that Rose Bowl. It was like the apocalypse. There was like 8 people there. Not actually. There's probably like 2,000 people there. Wikipedia is reading 27,143 people. There weren't 27,000 people in Pasadena that day. It was, I think, the first drive of the game. We went 3 and out, and we got our punt blocked for a touchdown.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. Ross, you would appreciate this.
What?
I'm just on the box score from the game. Total yards for UCLA that day, 626.
Really?
Pretty cool.
Wow, that is cool.
Yeah.
Shout out to 626 Pasadena, baby. Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought that up, Keon. That could have been that should have been the first thing in talking tweets.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been talking enough about fucking USC already, so enough of them. This Saturday, UCLA's opponent, the Black Shirts. Does anybody know why they call them the Black Shirts?
Nebraska? No.
Yeah. Kyle?
That'd be news to me.
I don't know the reason. Well, you guys don't even seem to know they're called that, but they're apparently their football team is nicknamed the Black Shirts. We are talking about the Nebraska Cornhuskers, and according to Google, the black practice jerseys have long been awarded to starters on Nebraska's defense. The tradition started in 1964 when Bob Devaney differentiated the defensive starters by putting them in black practice tops. That is not a cool backstory at all.
Yeah,
that is what.
I thought it was going to be like something like, the Civil War Regiment of Nebraska wore black uniforms.
I thought it was going to have to do with like pirates or something.
Yeah, something cool.
It's talking about like dusty practice jerseys.
Yeah.
Anyways, so the Bruins are taking on the Cornhuskers in Lincoln. It is Lincoln, Nebraska, correct?
Yep.
And the kickoff time, 12:30 p.m. So what are we thinking about this, boys? You got Nebraska. They're 5-3, 2-3 in the Big Ten. I believe both teams they have the same record against shared opponents. Mm-hmm. So this one might actually be a pretty good one to watch. What is it, Kyle? -7.5. I didn't guess that this time. I'm not gonna pretend.
I think you're pretty close.
Nebraska -7.5. Last time I saw
6.5 with a total over under at 40.5 right now.
Okay, and Dylan Raiola is healthy, correct? Patrick Mahomes.
Dylan Raiola, Patrick Mahomes is healthy. And yeah, just like you said, common opponents. I mean, they played Rutgers early October. It was a 14-7 ball game.
Oh, wow.
Nebraska won. Then they went and got their doors blown off by Indiana. Blows door off by Indiana.
Okay.
And then went to Columbus this past Saturday and duked it out with Ohio State, 21-17. So sort of an all-over place season.
I don't know what to take away from what you just told me. It was heading in a direction that seemed very similar to us, and then they apparently were hanging with Ohio State, and I know we would not hang with Ohio State, but I think it's going to be very interesting to see what kind of high this offense can ride from last week's, or not last week.
2 weeks ago.
From 2 weeks ago. UCLA's offensive clinic they put on against Rutgers, namely Ethan Garbers, who put up, 5 touchdowns himself? So you're going to have that offense that's seemingly kind of coming together under Bieniemy, now taking on a defense that's led by that's led by someone that a lot of people think should have been UCLA's head coach this year, and Tony White, who was a former linebacker for the Bruins. He's got the Huskers, the black shirt defense, just outside the top 10 at number 11 in yards allowed per game. So this is a pretty interesting one.
Yeah, I think the biggest benefit to UCLA, and this won't come as a shock, is coming off a bye week.
Yeah.
Nebraska's coming off a very high-octane, very emotionally charged game against Ohio State, where they were hanging in there. They could have won. I think they were leading at one point, 17-14. So, their charges are way high. UCLA has had 2 weeks to prepare for this game. They know what's coming to them, maybe outside of the uncertainty around the quarterback, but expecting Raiola to play, they should be prepared for this game. But Nebraska's a good quality defense, like you said, and it's going to be a tough environment to play in. Lincoln always is.
Yeah, I just hate to. I know UCLA is coming off a game where they scored the most points in the season so far, but this Nebraska defense is no joke. Their DBs, their secondary, very, very good, and I think with Raiola is ultimately what I thought Dante Moore was going to be. I know we talked about this, I think, in a season preview, but I'm looking at his stats: 66% completions, 9 touchdowns. He's had a great year for a true freshman quarterback in the Big Ten. And so I think UCLA is going to need their run game in this game, Ross. This is one of those games where I don't think we can just rely on the pass, but unfortunately, what are you going to do there, right? We haven't seen it yet. Maybe we see it Saturday, but if we don't, then I think it could be UCLA could really have trouble scoring some points.
And we're not saying anything new. It doesn't really matter on the opponent. Yeah, Nebraska has a top 10 passing defense. UCLA doesn't have a running offense.
Yeah.
We're going to pass the ball, and that's going to be really the only option. So let's hope we could get some checkdowns and find gaps in between their secondary.
I think if you're to look for something interesting that would happen with the offense, it would be, because it's what's kind of changed week to week with the passing game is which receivers are used. So two games ago, it was the J-Mike show, and then the following week, it was like he wasn't even on the team. And that's kind of been the story with him throughout his entire time at UCLA. So if we incorporate the wideouts more, or is this going to be the Logan Loya and Mataveo show? I don't know. I'd like to see why can't we find a healthy balance of both? Why can't the tight ends, the running backs, the slots, the wideouts all kind of work in harmony? I feel like all are tools that can be used for a serviceable quarterback like Garbers. I don't know.
Let me propose this to you guys. If UCLA were to come out of Nebraska somehow with a win, do you think the Bruins can get bowl eligible with 4 games remaining, needing 3 wins against Iowa? Struggling Iowa team, Washington, who, obviously that's on the road, a rivalry, and then Fresno State.
Would they need to win out?
Nope.
How many would they need to win?
They need to win 3 of the 4.
So they need a total win 4 out of the next 6, right? 4 out of the next.
Yeah.
This is assuming this is.
Yes.
But the question is assuming
they
win.
win. Okay.
Hypothetical, they win this Saturday.
I'll put it this way: it'll be way more realistic than I would have thought 3 weeks ago. Way more realistic, because beating Nebraska in Lincoln would kind of confirm that they're actually getting better. They've had some good performances and a win over Rutgers, and played Minnesota tough. So it's still very much like a jury being out. That's why I just had a brain aneurysm trying to talk about this offense. But I think if they manage to beat Nebraska, I'll be able to be okay. Like this team is actually on the right trajectory. They're trending upwards. So
agreed.
I still would struggle to believe that they're gonna. I don't know. Washington's not good, but
they're decent, and Seattle's a tough place. Husky Stadium's a tough place to play. Like if you beat Nebraska, that's a quality win.
And
you know.
And I know we like to shit on SC. They still have a good offense, and we haven't beat Fresno State, I don't think, while I've been alive. So I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. But this is a whole different conversation if they actually go out there and look impressive against Nebraska.
And I think if they do win, we can have a conversation around, can UCLA become bowl eligible after this weekend?
Yeah.
Agreed.
The
next 2 games, for whatever reason,
Ross is having a really hard time visualizing any scenario where UCLA.
Well, it's not that I'm having a hard time visualizing it. I'm just, if Deshaun Foster leads this team to a bowl game, I can read the headlines now about how confident Jarmond is with the direction of the football program. And I guess that's unfair because if he does manage to make a bowl game, that exceeded preseason expectations. So, maybe I should be more open to having my opinion changed on Foster as head coach for the foreseeable future. Like, if he does manage to make a bowl game with this team and with this schedule, he is deserving of maybe a changing of opinion. I've been so confident that he hasn't been the answer since a few weeks back that the prospect of him winning a bowl game and that kind of almost locking him into 3 years just kind of worries me. Because I feel like 2025 is going to be a much, much harder year for UCLA. We're losing everybody, and the schedule doesn't get any easier. No. So, but if Jarman can look back on this bowl game, I can so see that being a reason to give him a third year on top of all of this. I'm getting way ahead of myself, but this is just how I think.
I'm looking at UCLA's 2025 schedule, and this is now obviously we're getting very ahead. But we have Utah, which is a good team. Yeah, they're always a good team. Potentially Cam Rising for the 9th time.
Why are we playing Utah? Why?
I think it's some of these let's keep the Pac-12 alive.
Why is that?
We killed the Pac-12, but let's keep it alive.
Why is that a series of all series that we want to continue? Is it at Utah?
No, we're in the Rose Bowl this one, but it is a home and home. It is a home and home.
Home and home.
What a fucking stupid idea! Who is that a new thing? I think that recently got added to the schedule. I remember that
a few months ago. Yeah.
Yeah, because normally they're made 15 years in advance.
Had to replace the Georgia game. But anyway, so Utah is the home opener.
Okay.
A lot of these dates aren't out yet, only the non-conferences. But then you have Indiana, who might have an undefeated season in Bloomington.
Second year of their dynasty.
Yep. You have at Ohio State.
Okay. Oh my God! Are these in the correct order?
No. The
I was
order.
Dude, what? UCLA has a fetish for these gauntlets.
Then obviously at USC, home against Nebraska, home against Penn State.
Dude, this is a harder schedule.
This is a hard schedule. This isn't easy. Nebraska might be better. It will be better next year with a second year quarterback.
Yeah.
Michigan State is
Michigan.
Yeah, we missed Michigan. Michigan State is trending up. They could be good.
We'll play Oregon.
We're missing Oregon next year.
Really? I thought we always play the 4.
No? I'm just at this point. I'm going to read the entire schedule. We have Indiana, Michigan State, Northwestern, at Indiana, at Michigan State, at Ohio State, at USC. We're home against Maryland, Nebraska, Penn State, and Washington. We have less Big Ten home games than we have away games by 1.
Okay, now we don't have time to get into who we're losing, but I encourage you guys to go look up and see. Which, you're off the top of my head, we are going to lose Garbers, Hardin,
Loya,
Toya, Addison has to be gone. J-Mike?
Yeah.
J-Mike? Yeah.
I'd be so far out of here if I was J-Mike.
I would like to play a game, name a guy that contributes that is coming back. I think it'd be pretty difficult. So all of that considered with the schedule you just named, now can you kind of see, again, I don't want to be such a negative asshole about the head coaching thing, but I hear the NIL is not in a good position. We're going to be, again, down to the studs, second season Chip Kelly type stuff. Do we honestly believe with that schedule that Foster's the guy to do that? I don't think so. And a bowl game, I think, is basically a 2-year extension when you're talking about UCLA football. So that is why I am a little apprehensive about the prospect of us getting it together for these last few games.
And that is why, Ross, I'm so excited for tomorrow night.
Basketball season.
Yeah. Pulling the plug on this football shit. Finally, let's switch to basketball. My God. I thought it was going to be a quick episode, and fuck. We've been rambling. I've been rambling. All right, let's talk Bruin basketball. Kyle, you're kind of the in-house guy this year, I think, for hoops. So you start us off, pal.
Yeah. Last season was a rough year for UCLA men's basketball standards. 16 and 17. I think we got knocked out, I believe it was the second round of the Pac-12 tournament. No, NCAA tournament at all. Coming into this year, looking like a whole different team, right? Mick Cronin and his staff went with the, European Arizona basketball project last year. Did not pan out. Pretty much, most of those guys are on their way, I believe, except for Adai Mara, who looks a lot stronger this year, which we'll get into, but hit the transfer portal super hard. Kobe Johnson from USC, Tyler Bilodeau from Oregon State, Eric Daly, Oklahoma State, and they preseason AP 22, Big Ten number 3. I've heard Cronin talk about this team a lot, and he says it's the most depth he's ever had in his entire coaching career, and we're probably going to see 3-4-man switches at times, and I'm very excited. I don't know about you guys. I've been reading it up, and it's going to be much more fun than last year. Some great games on the schedule. Arizona neutral site, Gonzaga at the Clippers Intuit Dome. So it's going to be a fun one, I think.
I'm glad you mentioned those kind of 3 marquee matchups that UCLA has kind of earlier in the season. I think it's safe to say you got Gonzaga, North Carolina, and Arizona. Of those 3 games, which would you guys want to win the most? Like, what would mean the most? Because you've got Gonzaga, which is in LA, an epic brand new venue at Intuit Dome, and the Zags have kind of been that like heartbreaking kryptonite of UCLA for basically since the Adam Morrison game in 2006.
Yeah.
It says that we've gone 1-6 versus the Zags since that game, which is
but how many points have we lost by, like, combined for those 6 games?
I think it's been a healthy balance of heartbreaking March losses and blowouts.
Yeah.
So
that one Vegas game, we got blown out.
One Vegas game got blown out.
Yeah, and 4 of those 6 losses have been under Mick Cronin. And then you have Arizona in Phoenix. And there's not much that needs to be said about what a win over Arizona in any circumstance means. But you've got both schools now in their new respective conferences. They're just dying to talk shit about us blowing up their precious Pac-12 because that was the only thing that they could ever win was that conference tournament and nothing else. So they're probably extra bitter about that. And then you've got North Carolina, who's the only other the only real blue blood opponent of that field in Madison Square Garden in New York. So of those 3, what are we taking? What win is the most important of those 3?
Arizona. If you're telling me UCLA could go 1-2, and they have to go 1-2. Yeah. What's the one win? Yeah. It's Arizona and Phoenix.
I should have prefaced it like that. You have to go 1-2 and have to pick one. And I was kind of hoping there'd be some sort of like discussion, but I knew it would go this way. If you're picking anything but Arizona, then you must be new here because
especially since it's going to be in Arizona.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Nothing elicits.
It's going to be in Arizona.
Nothing elicits a high like beating Arizona in Arizona.
The meth heads.
And we'll be there, Ross.
We'll be there, and it's going to be. Dude, being at T-Mobile in Vegas was hostile enough. Being in Phoenix is going to be quite the experience. Somebody mentioned earlier today that they were watching Mick's post-practice presser from earlier today, and I did as well. And I'm glad that the first question asked, I think it was Tracy Pearson from Bruin Report, he asked about that UCLA scrimmage. That's kind of been the elephant in the room when talking about this team was UCLA sometime last week, I think. Lost to San Diego State in a one-on-one private scrimmage. And while you don't really want to place too much importance on anything preseason like that has no impact on record or really anything other than practice and reps, that's just not something that was comforting to hear when we're kind of looking at this basketball team as the savior of our emotions. And, you know, you've got this new lineup, and they're going to bring us back from the ashes of this football season. But then you hear they lose to San Diego State, and you're like, wait, what the fuck? But when answering that question, Mick goes, he states that we didn't play it as a game. We used 8 different groups of 5, kind of like a hockey-style type substitution cycle or rotation, and that we strictly use that as a practice. I think that is very reassuring to hear.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting in his response as well. I mean, you know, he's probably experimenting in that game, you know. I mean, the hockey style, you mentioned it, like 8 rotations of 5 different, you know, guys. Like, it's not how you sub in a basketball game, right? And if it was a real game, there's no way that would happen. He would keep Kobe Johnson in the game at times. He would keep his, you know, Dylan Andrews would play more minutes. So, I mean, it is concerning because San Diego State, I read, did have 5 scholarship players out. And I was really hoping to see from that box score, it's actually one of the first things I checked, was the rebounds. We were out-rebounded 27-35, which I think, in my opinion, outside of just the pure scoring issues we had last year, was probably the biggest issue that UCLA basketball had last year. Was the offensive boards, the defensive boards. Just, we gave so many extra possessions to opponents on the offensive glass, and seeing that we got out-rebounded, I think it was like 25-34 or something, almost by 10, was a little concerning for me. So, yeah, take what you want, but I like Mick Cronin's answer. You know, wasn't a game, did treat it like a game, and, you know, he'll be ready moving forward.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. I think going into this season, I was very unsure when I saw all the transfers, but the more and more I've read about it and researched it myself, the more excited I am to see all these guys out on the hardwood together. Going through their schedule, I mean, like we marked off Arizona. That's probably the first big game, maybe outside of New Mexico, that Kyle likes. But realistically, I'm expecting, I think, to be like 8-0, 9-0 going into Phoenix.
Oh, they absolutely should.
They should be.
The schedule has a.
Oregon would be a tough one.
Is Oregon before Arizona?
Or is the game right before?
Okay.
Yeah.
That's at Oregon, correct?
Yes.
At Oregon.
They did change. Oregon changed their court.
Oh, and it looks just. It still is
still
shitty.
Terrible.
They're allergic
I
to
didn't
not
know that.
ugly courts.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Wow.
How it took them that long to change that disaster is beyond me. They're all about the aesthetic. That literally looked like a used diaper. But you mentioned the rebounding, Kyle, being kind of like an area of concern, and rightfully so. For me, it's like, yeah, the roster is well-rounded, I would say. Like, you've got guys that can score. You've got natural defenders. You got, you know, like kind of like that prototype Cronin guy and guys that have a lot of experience. But, like, who is, like, the guy? Who is your Jaime? Who's your Tiger? Who's your Aflalo? Who's your Lonzo? Who is the guy that you can you always want at least one. I mentioned Jaime and Tiger. You had 2 of those with that squad that, like, in any given game, they would be the one to take over and get you those buckets that you absolutely needed, get that steal late in the game. Who was that guy for UCLA this year? It's kind of difficult looking at this roster to find, like, an obvious number 1 or number 2.
I think there's so many different categories you can place some of these guys in, right? Like, from what I've heard, you know, Dylan Andrews, you know, he is pick and pop, right? He's going to pull up. We see his mid-range game last year really excel. He's going to be the guy that the offense starts with, right? You have Kobe Johnson from SC, who he can score. A lot of people compare him to like a Jalen Clark. Just defensively, he's a menace on defense. But I feel like ever since Jaime left, we haven't really replaced that one guy that you can just throw the ball to him in the post, get it to him on the wing, and he can take a guy on 1v1 and score. And apparently that's supposed to be Tyler Bilodeau. Tyler Bilodeau is apparently just, you get him the ball, he can get you a bucket. He can go out there and score, you know, 15, 16 on a given night. And then we got Dominic Harris, who I think could be the second coming of David Singleton. I think he shot 44% from 3 at LMU last year. So this team's got guys where I feel like you can just place in different buckets. And, I mean, we haven't even talked about, I mean, Lazar Stefanovic, right? I think he had averaged 12 points. Sebastian Mack, you throw those guys on. So it's a dynamic team, Ross, but there's plenty of guys that I think can be that guy.
Yeah, and I had heard that Dominic Harris was absolutely lights out in some of the kind of the blue versus gold scrimmages that were covered, that those shots are still absolutely falling. So having a peer score is something that I feel like since Singleton has been very much absent, mostly just looking at last year, there'd be like 5-6 minute stretches of regulation time where UCLA literally wouldn't register a point. So that's reassuring to hear. If I had to pick a guy that I'd want to be that guy, it'd be Dylan Andrews. I think that kind of starts mentally with him. He's now like officially a veteran, not just in college basketball, but at UCLA. He has tournament experience with UCLA. And I think that kind of needs to manifest into some swagger and confidence for him. He's shown, I mean, last year he had that rough start, brought it together on the tail end of the year. I think if he can piece together a whole season and really kind of be that tenured anchor leader that is needed in a locker room full of transfers and guys that are new to the program, I think this is actually a big opportunity for him to become like a fan favorite, a team leader, and just play with some confidence and some swagger. He could be the guy, DA.
I mean, I agree. Like, he's a junior now, right? I totally feel what you're saying of, like, just watching Dylan Andrews for the past 2 years, I feel like he hadn't really gotten that swagger, like gotten that, yeah, I'm about to come out here and just drop 15, 20. I mean, in the SC game last year where we got blown out by SC at home, he had no points. Like, your point guard, that type of stuff I just don't want to see this year, and I don't think we'll see. And I think he had to feel like he did do so much last year because there was no help anywhere else, and I don't think our starters and our go-to guys are going to need to feel that pressure anymore, right? We're going to have so many guys that can come off the bench, give them a rest, give them a blow, and then they can get back in when, the time is right. So,
yeah,
DA is a click to pick.
When I'm looking for players that I want to see the biggest jump from, especially of that group who's coming back, I like Adai Mara.
I was going to say it has to be Adai Mara.
Right. Kid's 7'3". You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, he has to be – like, the bar is pretty low for that improvement. But, I mean, I feel like his biggest – and I'm not a basketball guy by any means, but I think his biggest detractor last year was when he'd get the ball up – he'd bring it back down, and I mean, you're 7'3", dude. You're not gonna have like Kyrie Irving type handles. Just go back up with it.
Yeah.
Nobody can contest with you without fouling.
Yeah.
So I just
leveraging and knowing your strengths.
Yeah. I just hope to see a little more maturity out of him on the court. I hope I've heard he's beefed up a little bit.
He's bulked up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No more Moses Browns.
Yeah.
That was what he reminded me last year was a Moses Brown. Now, credit to Adai Mara. He actually came back. But also credit to Moses Brown because he's like somehow playing well in the NBA. No, I don't mean to hate on the kid, but he was one of the worst starting UCLA basketball players I'd ever watched. It was just kind of that timid, blow in the wind type guy under the. He was a 7-footer, I believe, and just no willingness to just simply throw it down. And I'm hoping we see that from Adai. Although, with how he progressed last year, I'm almost kind of excited to see how he's like worked on or just kind of perfected his passing. Because unless I'm mistaken, Mara towards the tail end of last season, he's a really good kind of backdoor pass type guy. So if he's been able to beef up and actually learn how to enforce his will as the monster that he is with his height, in addition to the ability to kind of spread the ball, that's a major weapon that a lot of UCLA fans might not be considering right now, given the influx of talent that they got.
I agree, and I think this. I mean, I'm just scrolling down the schedule right now. The Big Ten. I'm just so excited for Big Ten basketball. Like, going to Purdue. I think we're at Purdue this year. We're at Indiana Assembly Hall. Like, these are basketball programs. I mean, Michigan State, Tom Izzo. Like, Michigan is coming to Pauley on January 7th. Like, those are the games where Pauley has not been packed for conference games over the last. I mean. How long?
Yeah, right?
Like
outside of
10,
like USC and Arizona.
Outside of USC, maybe Oregon, obviously Arizona. Like Michigan comes, Maryland, Wisconsin. That's a basketball school, right? So Michigan State and Pauley, like these are games that Bruin fans got to be excited for. These are the games where we're deep in, February and early March, and we're hopefully still in the top 15, and these games are massive ball games. So I'm excited, very excited, and by the next recording we'll have 2 UCLA basketball games under our belt.
Yep.
Right on. Amen to that. And with that, we are going to switch over to our closing segment per usual, getting parlayed. And last time, did I lead us off?
Yes.
We are 0-8?
Yeah.
So what order haven't we tried?
Kyle, Ross, Keon.
All right, Kyle.
All right, let's do it. I'm going to take the Oregon Ducks, the number 1 team in the country, against the Michigan Wolverines at -14.5. Get it while you can. I'm hot right now. I am. What do they call that in beer pong when you sink 2 in a row?
Fire.
Yeah, it's
I'm
the
fire.
NBA Jam thing. You guys remember the old NBA Jam games?
I'm going for fire. So Oregon -14.5. Michigan. I think they're 1 and 2 in their last 3. Something just happened in the Dodger game.
Fuck. Wow. What happened?
You can't. Mookie or Freddie Freeman 2-run home run for the record.
Is it 4-0?
No way.
Wow.
No, it's 2-0, but that's 5 games in a row. Or 6 games in a row.
I thought that Mookie hit a 2-run home run.
No, he hit a double.
A double. Okay,
Wow.
so now it's 2-0.
Yeah,
Okay.
now it's 2-0.
I got Oregon -14.5.
Okay, let's wrap this up so we can go watch the Dodgers finish this sweep. I am going to. I'm taking Ohio State -3.5 on the road in Happy Valley. I think that they got their heartbreak out of the way with Oregon, and that Penn State is still grossly overrated, and they have a losing record with wideouts. So give me the Buckeyes -3.5.
Yeah, I like that pick. I'm going to take Indiana -7.5 against Michigan State. I think they are the 3rd best team in the Big Ten. I have no other blurb but that. It's 50-50 anyway, so yeah.
Right
Plus
on.
500 if you guys want to tail the slip.
All right.
Go Dodgers.
And what is how do they end MTV Cribs? You don't have to. You don't gotta
go home, but you can't stay here.
All right. You don't got to go home, but you can't stay here because we are wrapping this up to go watch the Dodgers. But with that being said, thanks again for tuning in. We will catch you next week to recap the UCLA game against Nebraska and preview their upcoming opponent, who I never know. It's going to be Iowa on a Friday night. Thank you, guys. Go Bruins.
All right. See you.